The voice in the lanterns. In the autumn of 1987, deep in the forested hills of Fukuoka Prefecture, Japan, the village of Kuruyama clung to the edge of oblivion. Tucked between ancient cedars and a winding river, it was a place forgotten by time. Its dirt roads unlit save for a single row of old stone lanterns, their moss-covered surfaces glowing faintly at dusk. The villagers, a dwindling handful of elders, spoke little of the outside world, their lives bound to rituals older than memory. Akihiro Tanaka, a 29-year-old journalist from Tokyo, had made a name for himself chasing urban legends, his notebook filled with tales of haunted tunnels and forgotten shrines. Akihiro had tracked it down through a retired postman who claimed to have delivered mail there once, decades ago, and swore never to return. The villagers, no more than a dozen, watched from doorways, their eyes wary but silent. An old woman, her hair white as bone, pointed them to a clearing just outside the village where they could camp. "Don't answer the lanterns," she said, her voice a rasp. "They call, but you mustn't speak." Akihiro laughed it off, but Hannah wrote the warning in her notebook, her pen lingering on the words. At the village's heart stood the stone lanterns, 7 in all, lining a path to a crumbling shrine. He froze, his notebook slipping from his hands. The others heard it too, their names called one by one. Yumi, Kenji, Hannah. The voices were layered, a chorus of whispers, some male, some female, some neither. The night grew colder, the forest darker, and they retreated to their tents, the tape recorder still running. Akihiro couldn't sleep, the hum lingering in his mind, his name echoing like a curse. When he checked the recorder at dawn, it had captured something, a faint whisper, not his voice, repeating, "You spoke, now I see you." They came from the lanterns, their glow now a sickly green, the symbols on their surfaces writhing like living things. The road out of Kuruyama seemed longer, the trees closer, their branches forming a canopy that blocked the sun. Kenji suggested they investigate the shrine, hoping its history might explain the lanterns. Its eyes were 2 points of green light, matching the lantern's glow. She screamed, dropping her camera, its lens cracking on a rock. The figure vanished, but the hum grew, now a chorus of voices speaking in unison. "You see me, now I see you." Inside, they found a small altar, its wood blackened, adorned with offerings of rice and bones. A scroll, brittle with age, lay open, its kanji faded but legible. "The voice binds the soul. Answer, and it claims you." Their surfaces were etched with symbol Spyro's eyes, jagged lines that seemed to shift in the fading light. The lanterns glowed brighter, their light casting shadows that moved against the wind. The voices came again, calling their names, now with a tone of hunger. "Akihiro," they whispered, then Yumi, Kenji, Hannah. But Akihiro's name was louder, repeated like a chant. He clutched his recorder, his face pale, and whispered, "I shouldn't have answered." But Akihiro, ever the journalist, couldn't resist. "Who's there?" he called, his voice trembling. The hum stopped, the silence so sudden it felt like a weight. Their fire pit was filled with ash, though they'd burned only a few logs. Yumi's camera had taken photos overnight, images of the lanterns glowing in the dark, their symbols clearer, forming shapes that hurt to look at. Kenji's sketches were smudged, as if a hand had dragged ink across the pages, leaving spirals where none had been. Hannah's notebook was untouched, but she swore she'd heard footsteps circling their tents, too light to be human. The lanterns dimmed, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. The old woman was gone, her house empty, the door swinging in the wind. The other villagers avoided them, their eyes averted, their doors locked. Akihiro found a child, no older than 10, playing near the shrine. "Where's the old woman?" he asked. The boy pointed to the lanterns, his face blank. "She answered," he said, then ran. Yumi grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his skin. "You idiot," she hissed. "You answered." Yumi snapped photos, the click of her shutter loud in the stillness. Kenji sketched the symbols, his pencil trembling slightly. Hannah, ever the skeptic, touched a lantern, her fingers tracing the cold stone. "They're just old," she said, but her voice wavered. "The lanterns hum," the old man said, his hands trembling. "They know you." The group dismissed his fear as superstition but couldn't resist the pull of a mystery. They packed light cameras, notebooks, a tape recorder and drove into the hills. their rental car rattling along a road that seemed to vanish into the trees. The night was cold, the stars hidden by clouds, and the only light came from the faint glow of the lanterns, visible through the trees. Akihiro checked his recorder, but the tape was blank, the hum absent from its reels. "It's in my head," Yumi whispered, her hands pressed to her ears. The sound wasn't just a noise, it was a rhythm, a pulse that carried fragments of words, too faint to discern. Hana stood, her flashlight cutting through the dark, and saw the lanterns glowing brighter, their light pulsing in time with the hum. Akihiro set up his tape recorder, hoping to capture ambient sounds for his story. Yumi wandered the clearing, her camera flashing, while Kenji pored over his sketches, muttering about the symbol's resemblance to ancient Jomon carvings. Hana sat by the fire, her notebook open, transcribing the old woman's warning. With him were Yumi Soto, a photographer whose lens captured the beauty in decay, Kenji Mori, a folklorist obsessed with rural myths, and Hana Nakamura, a university student researching the occult for her thesis. They'd heard of Kuroyama through a cryptic post on an early internet bulletin board, a single line buried in a thread about cursed places. In Kuroyama, the lanterns call your name, answer, and you're gone. But Kuroyama was no ordinary hamlet. It was a place where the air felt heavier, where the forest seemed to listen, and where the lanterns whispered secrets no one dared answer. In October of that year, a group of outsiders arrived, drawn by rumors of a village cursed by voices in the night. They would learn, too late, that some calls should never be heeded. The outsiders. The group was small but eclectic, united by a shared curiosity about Japan's hidden places. The village was hard to find, absent from most maps, its name whispered only in the dim corners of Fukuoka's bars. Kuroyama appeared as if conjured, its wooden houses sagging under mossy roofs, the air thick with the scent of cedar and damp earth. The group asked to stay, offering money, but the villagers refused, their faces unreadable. The first night they pitched their tents in the clearing, the forest pressing close, its branches clawing at the sky. Around midnight, the hum began. It was low at first, like the drone of distant bees, but it grew, a vibration that seemed to rise from the ground. Then, it came a voice, soft and sibilant, weaving through the hum. "Akihiro," it said, clear as a bell. "Don't answer," Hana said, her voice sharp, echoing the old woman's warning. They waited, hearts pounding, but nothing happened. The second night, the group woke to find their camp subtly altered. They went to the village, seeking answers. The group decided to leave, but their car wouldn't start, the engine dead despite a full tank. That night, the hum returned, louder, more insistent. Yumi saw at first a figure at the edge of the clearing, tall and thin, its form cloaked in shadow, its face a grey void where features should be. The third night, panic set in. Akihiro was unraveling, his eyes bloodshot, his hands shaking as he played the recorder's tape over and over, hearing his name in the whispers. Yumi refused to touch her camera, its photos now showing only the figure, its form clearer in each frame, its hands elongated, fingers curling like roots. Kenji protested, warning that breaking them might anger whatever was bound to them. But Akihiro, desperate, agreed with Hana. They waited until dusk, when the lantern's glow was strongest, and approached the path to the shrine. The air was thick, the hum a physical weight, pressing against their chests. Kenji buried himself in the scroll's text, translating fragments that spoke of a ritual gone wrong, a village that had bound something ancient to the lanterns, a presence that fed on those who answered its call. Hana, the most grounded, took charge. She proposed destroying the lanterns, believing they were the source. Akihiro's tent was empty, his recorder gone, his notebook open to a page of spirals, the ink still wet. The car started without issue, but the road out felt wrong, the trees too close, the sky too low. They drove in silence, the hum lingering in their ears, a faint echo of Akihiro's name. Hana struck the first lantern with a rock, its stone cracking, the glow flickering out. Hikers in Fukuoka's hills report strange things. A hum in the air, lanterns glowing where no village stands, a figure in the trees with eyes like green fire. Some find objects, a notebook, a cracked lens, a tape recorder with a single voice whispering a name. If you hear it, if you see the glow, don't speak, don't answer, because once you do, the lanterns know you, and Kuroyama will never let you go. The villagers, if they ever existed, are silent. their houses reclaimed by the forest. Kuroyama, they said, was abandoned years ago, its villagers long gone. He touched it, and that night he heard his name, soft and insistent, coming from the dark. He didn't answer, but the hum followed him, growing louder each night, until he vanished. His car left on a dirt road, its radio playing static. The lantern was gone when searchers arrived, the clearing empty, the forest silent. The officers searched but found no trace of the village, only a clearing with 7 stone lanterns, their surfaces blank, no symbols, no glow. Umi's photos showed nothing but trees. Her camera's lens on Kenji's sketches were gone, his notebook filled with blank pages. Hana's notes remained, but the scroll's translation was illegible. The kanji smudged into spirals. The hum faltered, then surged, a scream that wasn't human. Kenji abandoned his research, moving to Osaka, where he avoided forests. Hana finished her thesis but never spoke of Kuroyama, her notebook hidden in a box, yet the hum followed them. Faint at first, heard in quiet moments a whisper of their names, a call they dared not answer. The lanterns flared, their light blinding, the symbols now alive, crawling across the stone. The voices were a cacophony, chanting their names, but Akihiro's was loudest, a plea and a curse. He stopped running, his face blank, and turned to the figure. "What do you want?" he shouted, answering again. The figure appeared, closer now, standing at the path's end, its eyes burning. Akihiro screamed, a sound that cut through the hum, and then he was gone, the air rippling where he'd stood. The lanterns dimmed, the voices quieted, but the forest felt heavier, as if it had swallowed him whole. "Akihiro," it said, its voice no longer a whisper but a command. He froze, his recorder slipping from his hands, its tape unspooling like entrails. Umi grabbed him, pulling him back, but the figure glided forward, its form shimmering like heat over asphalt. They ran to the clearing, the forest closing in, branches snapping at their faces. The figure reached for him, its fingers brushing his arm. The morning after, Yumi, Kenji and Hana woke in their tents, the clearing silent, the fire pit cold. In Fukuoka, they reported his disappearance to the police, who were skeptical. The group parted ways, their bond shattered. Yumi stopped taking photos, her camera locked in a drawer, its film undeveloped. The village that waits Kuroyama is gone from maps, its name erased, but the forest remembers. In 1995, a hiker found a stone lantern deep in the hills, its surface etched with a spiral. The voice in the lantern's waits, bound to the hills, its call carried by the wind.